When we moved into our new home, we found an old calendar still hanging on the wall. 3 dates were circled in red inkage, one labeled with the same chilling message. Don't step outside, my husband Marcus, and I may not have even noticed it if we hadn't moved in during early January. The crisp, biting air made the move bearable compared to our usual midsummer hauls. Under a blazing sun, we stepped through the towering mahogany doors into what we hoped would be our final house, the one we'd grow old in. As we entered the barren living room, Marcus stopped and tilted his head. Was that here before? He asked, gesturing. I followed his eyes to the far wall, a lone calendar tacked just above the fireplace. The house was completely empty, no furniture, no fixtures, since the moving truck wouldn't be delivering until the next morning. Nothing should have been there. Marcus dropped the bag from his shoulder and walked over, squinting at the red circle drawn around one of the dates. What do you think this one's for? He asked aloud. Maybe someone's birthday, I replied, too tired to care. He flipped through the rest of the calendar. There's 2 more like it, he said, more serious this time. And there's writing under each, 3 dates, spread across the year, then repeated in the next. February 6th, June 19th, September 2, 1 st. Beneath each. Don't step outside. I was intrigued, but exhaustion won. I told Marcus that we could dive into calendar mysteries another time. That night, we dragged our bags upstairs and collapsed in the master bedroom. When I woke up the next morning, Marcus was on the couch, one of the few things we had moved in early, staring at the calendar. He had a notepad in his lap and a pencil in his hand. As I entered the room, he looked up and gave me the warm, reassuring smile that had always calmed my nerves. We chatted briefly about the house and the delivery schedule, but he quickly circled back to the calendar. He had already tried searching for connections between the dates and found nothing concrete, so he was trying to find patterns himself. I had lived with Marcus long enough to know how he was when something grabbed his attention, but this was different. This was obsession. The calendar had stirred something uncomfortable in me as well, a quiet warning hiding in plain sight. Why these specific days? Why the command? I rationalized it away. Maybe someone had lived here between our final viewing and move-in. Maybe they left it behind as a prank. I told Marcus and myself that the simplest explanation was probably the correct one. Still, he couldn't let it go. As February 6th crept closer, he decided to do something about it. Let's just stay in on the 6th, he said. Play along. I agreed, partly to humor him, and partly so I could give him that knowing smirk when nothing happened. He suggested we do a little neighborhood watch from our large front window to see if anyone else ignored the warning. Earlier, Marcus had already questioned the neighbors. Friendly introductions had quickly turned awkward when he asked about the calendar. They all responded the same. It comes with the house, and then, with tight smiles, added, don't ever bring it up again. That morning we turned the couch around and faced the street. We sat there for hours, first speculating about the calendar, then reminiscing about our life together. We got lost in memories. The tension of the mystery gave way to warmth. Until Mr. Harrington from across the street stepped outside. We had met the Harringtons soon after moving in. They'd lived in the neighborhood for decades. At first, everything looked ordinary. Mr. Harrington lit a cigarette, leaned back, and exhaled. But as the smoke drifted across his face, something happened. He vanished. 1 second he was there, solid, living, breathing, and the next, gone. The cigarette remained, hovering in midair, burning silently as though still being smoked. Moments later, just as suddenly, he was back, standing in the same spot, cigarette still in hand, as if he had never left. Marcus looked at me, eyes wide, with disbelief. I must have mirrored the same terror. We said nothing until Mr. Harrington casually turned and walked back inside his house. Did that actually happen? Marcus whispered. I only nodded. We stopped watching. Neither of us wanted to see anything else. The rest of that day passed slowly, blinds drawn, silence heavy. A deep, unshakable wrongness had seeped into our home. When the clock struck midnight, and the date finally rolled over, we gathered our courage and crossed the street. I knocked. Mrs. Harrington answered, wearing a smile that stretched a little too wide. Well, what a surprise. What brings you over? She asked, voice cheerful. Mr. Harrington stood behind her, waving kindly. Marcus spoke up. Sorry to bother you, but did your husband go outside yesterday? We saw something strange, and we're just trying to understand. Mrs. Harrington's smile didn't falter, but something shifted behind her eyes. A flicker of fear. It was barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. My Frank, she said sweetly. No, you must be mistaken. Then she raised her voice slightly. Frank, turn off the stove, will you? Your favorite soup's on." He turned and disappeared into the hallway. In that instant, she leaned in and whispered, "The whispers will find you. Leave before they do, or you'll be too late." She straightened just as quickly, her warm demeanor snapping back into place. Mr. Harrington returned seconds later, faster than he should have. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Come in, have some soup, it'll do you good." We declined and walked back home in silence. That night we watched from behind the curtains. All the lights in the Harrington house began flickering on and off for minutes. Then, darkness. We never saw Mrs. Harrington again. We called the police. They responded, but the report made things worse. "There's no Mrs. Harrington on record," they told us. "Frank inherited this place from his father, never married." If Marcus and I hadn't both seen her, spoken with her, we might have believed them, but we had each other. That was the only thing keeping us grounded. We wanted to leave, desperately, but we had just moved in, so we started quietly searching for a new place. Then the whispers came. Only Marcus heard them at first. I held him when he woke up gasping. I consoled him when he stared at the walls, insisting he heard voices speaking his name. Telling him about something wonderful just outside. He said they were calling him, telling him to come see what they had for him. All he had to do was unlock the front door. Yesterday was June 19th, our second marked date. I tried everything to stop him, but Marcus was stronger than me. He pushed past. I watched him step out, and just like Mr. Harrington, he vanished. Then he reappeared, not outside, not coming through the door. He was suddenly standing right beside me. Inside he looked at me and smiled, but something was different. That smile, the one I had known for years, didn't reach his eyes. Ever consider that some roads don't just stretch, they breathe? Not as a poetic idea, but literally. Inhale, exhale, as if they're alive, throbbing beneath the asphalt with something ancient older than memory, hungrier than decay. Ever walk a road that whispers with no wind, no cars, no resonance, still feel like something's watching? There's one like that here. Route 93, a deserted path of crumbling pavement cutting through endless fields where the air sits heavy and time stands still. Tilted fence posts line the sides. Nothing grows but brittle stalks of wheat and silence. Locals avoid it. At night they don't even look its way, and if you ask, they'll mutter something about keeping balance and quickly move on. I didn't take them seriously. Not until it was too late. I'm Liam, a mechanic. I work at Reggie's auto shop 12-hour days, 6 times a week. Same jobs, same conversations, same busted radio playing fuzzy classic tunes, and that greasy wall clock that's somehow always 10 minutes slow. Route 93 runs just beyond the shop's gravel lot. For years, it was just scenery, nothing more than heat ripples and an occasional tumbleweed, until Reggie gave me the first warning. One evening, sky turning that deep purple of dying daylight, I was rolling the main door shut. Reggie stopped me, one hand flat on the steel. "Don't close it all the way," he said. "Not a request. A command." I paused, confused. "What do you mean, why not?" He didn't meet my gaze, just tapped the metal and said, "It needs air." I laughed nervously. "What needs air?" Reggie didn't clarify. Instead, he motioned me toward the inside of the door. I leaned in closer. The metal was scarred. Deep slashes etched across it like talons had raked through. Whether trying to break in or get out, I couldn't tell. A weight pressed on my chest, invisible but heavy, like something nearby was watching. Waiting. From that night on, I left the door cracked open. Exactly 6 inches. Reggie insisted that was the threshold, any more or less, and it would upset the balance. At the time I chalked it up to stress. Long days, tired eyes, nothing more. But that night, driving home along Route 93, something shifted. A subtle tension in the air. I couldn't stop checking my mirrors over and over. Then the headlights came, flashing briefly in my rear view once, twice, then gone. The road behind me looked endless, empty, like a tunnel stretching into darkness. I shook it off, told myself I needed sleep, and then I saw him. A thin man stepped out from the roadside, barefoot, one arm raised, thumb out. His clothes faded and dusty, like he'd been out there a long time. His eyes blank, hollow. For reasons I still don't understand, I slowed down. "You need a lift?" I asked. He studied me silently, his head tilted just a fraction. Then he nodded and slid into the passenger seat. We didn't talk, not once. He sat perfectly still, hands folded, staring straight ahead. When I pulled into the next gas station, he stepped out without a word and walked behind the building, disappearing into shadow. He didn't ask for directions, didn't say goodbye, but when I glanced in the rear view, he was still there behind, The fence just watching me, like memorizing where I lived. The next day I mentioned it to Reggie, his face drained of color. He scratched his beard, then muttered something I can't forget. He's not lost. That road's his home. You let one in, he paused, and something else has to leave. That evening I whistled for my dog, Buster. Loyal mutt, smart, always came running at the sound of keys jingling. Not this time. He vanished. No tracks, no scent, nothing. I put up flyers. Called every vet, searched for days. He was just gone. And Route 93, peaceful again. Balanced, apparently. From then on, I followed the rules. Always cracked the shop door 6 inches. Always kept a careful eye on my mirrors. Never ever picked up strangers. But that wasn't the end. Just the start. Reggie changed after that. Subtle at first. Nervous eyes. Slower hands. Checking corners and counting tools obsessively. Like he was tracking something invisible moving through the shadows. One morning, as dawn seeped through the grimy windows, he pointed to the tool wall. Every wrench, every socket, every pry bar has a place, he said. A number. Oh wait. I nodded, not thinking much of it, until the day I noticed a wrench missing, so I put it back. Figured I was being helpful. But Reggie's face twisted like I'd broken something sacred. You moved one, he asked, voice flat. No, I replaced it. His eyes narrowed. Even days the count must stay odd. Keeps the watchers calm. That word watchers stuck with me. Later, I counted 13 tools. Good odd. Next morning, I shifted one tool to a drawer without thinking. 12 even. That night, something crashed beside my bed. I jolted up, heart racing, turned on the lamp. There it was. A wrench. Ice cold, right by my pillow. Never brought it home. After that, the customers changed. Strange vehicles showed up, cars that didn't belong anywhere I recognized. No plates. Engines that sounded wrong. Once, a jet black sedan rolled into the lot under a cloudless sky. Windows tinted darker than pitch. The driver wore a smooth, hooded mask. No face, just shadow. He didn't speak. I did the work. Changed his oil. His engine pulsed like a living thing. Cold air clung to the car. When I finished, he paid me $6, a 5 and a 1. But the receipt printed 13. I showed Reggie. He didn't flinch. Just shrugged and said, odd in, odd out. That night, I couldn't sleep. The numbers ran circles. In my mind, the tools, the door, the man in the hood. The next day, I cornered Reggie. What is this place? I demanded. He pulled out a crumpled paper from his pocket, a list smudged ink. Oil stains. The rules. One never share the rules until they've proven they can handle the task. To leave the door cracked 6 inches at night. 3 don't offer rides. 1 enters. 1 leaves. 4 always keep an odd number of tools on the wall. 5 never look. Through the back window after midnight. 6 the ratchet always returns to Bay 1's red box. By the time I read the last line, I understood this wasn't just a repair shop, it was a gateway wall, keeping something in or keeping us out, and I was part of it now. Then came the tapping just past midnight, in Bay 3. While I worked on a timing belt I heard it. A soft knock, then harder, urgent from the back window. I checked the clock. 12:05. Rule 5 screamed in my head, but curiosity pulled me to the glass. I looked it, stared back. A creature, emaciated, joints wrong, too many bends in its arms, mouth churning in endless silent speech, neck turning too far, like it had no bones. I dropped to the floor, cut the light, waited. When I checked again, it was gonna butt for a week afterward. Every mirror reflected it. Behind me, just standing, always watching. One morning, I found the ratchet out of place, neatly laid beside tiny prints, child-sized. Deep sharp eyes showed Reggie. He wiped them away without a word. That's when I knew it wasn't over. It was closing in, and I made the final mistake one night, during a violent storm. Thunder that shook the walls. Lightning that split the sky. Stayed late to finish a transmission job. Alone I did everything right. Door cracked. Tools counted. No mirrors, no passengers. Then I heard footsteps inside, slow, wet, measured. Who's there? I called out. No reply. Turned. Lights buzzed on outsides. Beneath the flickering lot lamp, the sedanta. The driver stared. The lights flickered again. I opened the fuse box. Total darkness. Lightning struck, and in that flash, I saw inside the car dozens of blank faces pressed against the glass. No eyes, no mouths, just skin tight listening. I ran. Rain lashed my face. The wind screamed behind me. The door slammed shut. The way someone had broken rule 2. I turned. The hooded man walked toward the shop. Deliberate. My truck was behind me. I started to run, then froze. Figures emerged from the storm, twisted, stretched shadows with 2 long limbs, slithering, not walking, heading for the door in the rear view. The sedan was empty. The hood lay on the seat. The trunk swung open, one grey hand reached out and shut it soft, silent. Final something brushed my boot. A wrench 14. Even wrong, I didn't need confirmation. I knew the rules weren't for my protection, they were orders. Expectations, I failed them. I drove like hell. When I returned at sunrise, the shop was sealed, welded shut, and on the door, smeared in black grease, ODD, crack count, never load a see, no explanation, just that now I live far away. Small apartment, no mirrors, odd tool counts. Always Addy, haven't seen Route 93 since, but when lightning flickers and I glimpse the shape with wrong arms in my window, I know they are still watching, waiting for someone else to slip, because once the rules are broken, they come for you next.